According to Chris Haynes of Yahoo Sports, they intend to use LeBron as a point guard, which doesn't really surprise me because wherever LeBron has been, the ball always goes through him, right? That's not a surprise. But they also get a really good signing, I think, to me. Avery Bradley gets a 2-year deal for just under $10 million. He is a really, really good defensive player, and the kind of player when you have LeBron and Anthony Davis and Kuzma and Boogie Cousins, and now Danny Green, who's a three-pointer on the outside. They're building an interesting team, Mike.
They are certainly what they threw together last year, but I think everybody understood last year was kind of that waste year. That this year, okay, they didn't get Kawhi, but they got Anthony Davis. They're putting some pretty good pieces there. And as you said, LeBron playing the point. He was a point forward for Harvard, so now you're just changing it to a point guard. You know, the other point guards, Rajon Rondo, Quinn Cook, Alex Caruso, they're the other point guards on the roster. Alonzo Ball now is gone there. But I do like what they're doing and put the ball in the hands of LeBron James. Let him lead the way.
You know what? I think it surpassed the low expectations we had for where they were going to be able to operate from this point. Like, once you went all in on the Kawhi thing and waited as long as you did and missed out on those true good waves of free agency, we went, man, they're going to be operating out of the bargain bin. But now we've seen a couple of names that we know that make a little more sense than last year, which, again, lowered the bar because of how poor their free agent choices seemed to be all last year.
Well, remember last year, we're going to zig where everyone else is zags? No.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, you could say if he didn't get the injury on Christmas Day, maybe things would have changed, but nobody thought that team, as it was constructed for the 2018-19 season, made a lot of sense. Well, it was a good run, but it is over for teenage phenom Coco Gauff. She ends her run at Wimbledon in the 4th round with Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo here with you as we get set for the All-Star game tonight, a game you can hear on ESPN Radio. But it's time for some Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. And let's be clear, Justin Verlander believes in the straightest of straight talks. And an interview with our Jeff Passan, which you can read on ESPN.com. Verlander told ESPN on Monday that the balls being used in Major League Baseball games this season are, and I'm quoting here, a joke.
It's an effing joke, he said.
And he believes, quote, 100%, end quote, that the league has implemented juiced balls to increase the offense. We should point out, by the way, for historical purposes, this is not the first time Justin Verlander has gone down this road. After the incredible World Series between the Astros and the Dodgers in 2017, including that one game. Was it Game 3 in Houston or Game 4? I can't remember which one, where Clayton Kershaw and I can't remember, it might have been Verlander were pitching, and then the balls just started flying out of the ballpark. I think the final score was like 13-11. It was some ridiculous number like that. After that World Series, Justin Verlander came out and said he believed that Major League Baseball was using a different ball during the World Series than they were during the regular season. So he has gone down this conspiracy rabbit hole before.
Yes, he has. And as far as the numbers to back it up, home runs are up nearly 60% from the 2014 season. Rob Manfred became the commissioner in 2015 and actually commissioned a study to investigate whether the balls were contributing to a home run spike. It concluded that balls were performing differently, but didn't attribute a reason. In June 2018, 1 month after the study was released, Major League Baseball bought Rawlings, which is the supplier of the official Major League Baseball, which is something that Justin Verlander bought up as to say Major League Baseball owns the company that makes the baseballs, and that was a large part of his accusation. His quote was, if any other $40 billion company bought out a $400 million company and the product changed dramatically, it's not a guess as to what happened.
Yeah, and here is, by the way, we had Rob Manfred on with us yesterday, and we asked him about him because in the first half of the Major League season this year, I think there were 3,600 plus
3,691 home runs, broke the record by over 300, and they're on pace for 6,600 home runs, which would obliterate the record of 61 home runs.
Right. So we are definitely seeing a spike in home runs. The question then, because we know in past it wasn't the balls that were spiked or juiced, it was the players that were juiced. We know that now definitively. We understand. So here was Rob Manfred addressing the number of home runs and whether or not the ball is a part of it.
We think what's been going on this year is attributable to the baseball. Our scientists that have been now studying the baseball more regularly have told us that this year the ball has a little less drag. It doesn't need to change very much in order to produce meaningful change in terms of the way the game's played on the field. We're trying to understand exactly why that happened and build out a manufacturing process that gives us a little more control over what's going on. But you have to remember, our baseballs, is a handmade product, and there's going to be variation year to year.
Listen, it's not going to stun anybody if we see the balls have been, made up a little differently to go out of the park. And what Rob Manfred had said, that it seems like there's less drag on the ball, so it's going to go out of the stadium a little quicker. And to your point quickly, as Justin Verlander was dropping F-bombs about this thing, he brought up 2007 because there were 2 years, 2017 and this year. And you mentioned that he said it in 2017. Those were 2 years, this year and that year, where they're questioning the ball. And he said those are the only 2 years of his career that he got blisters. Yeah. He said because he feels the ball was made up a little differently. Oh, by the way, I don't know if we've mentioned, he's given up a league-leading 26 home runs this year.
And
he's still the starter for the American League in the All-Star game.
So he has a big problem with the ball. And here comes another pitcher, another All-Star pitcher, by the way, and Max Scherzer basically saying, don't want to hear it.
Yeah, he said, don't give me any of that guff. Here's Nationals. Here's Max Scherzer.
I don't feel anything different with the ball, but I think we can all see the ball is definitely traveling differently. The commissioners even come out and said so. The drag is just different. It's less. So the ball is different, but you can't cry about it. You got to go out there and pitch. I'm not going to cry about it, so our hitters get to hit with it.
So there's a lot to get into with that interview with Carl Ravitch there, Max Scherzer, last night. He's basically admitting he does think the ball is different, even though he doesn't think it feels differently, right? I mean, that's what he said. Look, the ball's going out a lot, so maybe it is a little different, but it doesn't feel different to him. And then he wraps it up with like, so we all got to hit with it, we all got to pitch with it, so what's the point?
It all feels like we're in an adjustment period, right? Because it's not just one thing that's been a control in this while everything else has changed. We've talked about batters' increased launch angle. We've talked about the analytics approach that basically says swinging for the fences, trying to get more home runs even at the expense of strikeouts is kind of the way to go. You've heard hitters on the other side say, I think it was J.D. Martinez was talking about it. When you got more pitchers throwing for power, maybe you sacrifice some control. So if you punch all these things, is there something different about the baseball that's probably helping the pop? Hell yes, I probably believe that's true. But all of these other things are also true. And that adjustment for a guy like Verlander, who's been around doing this for a while, who's used to being very good in a certain context, probably takes some getting used to. Like, he's still the all-star starter for the AL. He's just having a difficult time processing how he got there.
It's I think Joe Madden had one of the great lines, the Cubs manager. While pitchers, again, have been outspoken about the ball, the seams, the leather, the size, and how hard it feels, Joe Madden said of the ball this past weekend, you could have just stamped Titleist on either side of these things.
Well, then it makes all the sense in the world that Vlad Guerrero almost won it because nobody golfed more home runs than his dad.
Oh, my gosh.
And we had Carl Ravitch on with us from Baseball Tonight yesterday, and he made the point that Vlad Guerrero Sr. and looked like Jr. could be that as well, would have been a hell of a cricket player. He could hit it off the bounce and hit it out.
So real quick, anybody have a problem if the balls are different, are harder, are going out of the park quicker?
I only have a problem with it if that's true and they're saying it isn't true. That's the only way I would have a problem with it. Because if they're saying, well, they're made a little different and they're made by hand, and that's some of the things that one of the things that Rob Manfred said with us, it's not a machine. These are human beings that are making it, allowing for the caveat of,
he did say there's less drag on the ball.
Yes.
I mean, he did admit
they're
to that.
Scientists.
If that's admitting enough for people to say the ball is different enough to travel out of the park or not.
The way the timeline lined up that we mentioned of their timing of releasing a study and then buying the company that makes the balls does look suspicious. We can say that. And so that part of it, I'd agree with you, Trey. The rest of it, the only difference here is that you've got a situation where pitchers are largely stars in Major League Baseball. So when they complain, the complaints are a little louder because, hell, we see rule changes adversely affect defensive players in the NFL all the time. But when you're not the quarterback, those complaints fall on deaf ears when offense is what puts and sells tickets and what puts butts in seats.
Which, in the biggest difference here is a lot of the pitchers, Mike, as you mentioned, are the stars, but they're the ones getting hurt in this for sake of an offense, just like in the NFL.
But let's be honest about something else, too. The other thing that the pitchers are a great beneficiary of right now is people do not care about hitting for average anymore.
Nope.
You are getting strikeouts piled up at an alarming rate that you've never seen before as a pitcher. So if you're going to complain about the home runs, and I get it, you may have a legitimate point, you got to say some of your strikeouts are probably BS too, right? Because nobody's even trying to put the ball in play.
That's a fair statement.
They're trying to swing for the fences. So if you're going to complain about the home runs, understand that your strikeouts are probably way more than they should be. And that's looking at it from both sides. And that is Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart. Speaking of less drag on the balls and the ball getting out of the stadium quicker, that means it can also get into foul territory a lot quicker. And we talked to the commissioner about that and the changes that might need to be coming for the sake of fans. We'll get into that discussion after this.
All right, keeping your facility running efficient means managing a whole lot of things at once. When it comes to seeing the big picture, Grainger's got your back. Grainger provides you with the products and solutions that help keep your facility on schedule. And this is a great word, on budget. Grainger helps you easily order